It's a good attitude. Thank you.
I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting of the 3 MPO to order. It's June 15th, 6 p.m. And right now we'll open it up for public comment. Do we have any of the public that would like to comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion. And right now we have approval of the minutes.
Second.
So move in a second.
That was it. Okay.
Ron
Ron.
and Tom was.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. Do we have any comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Committee reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, Chairman Bilso could not make it today. He is suffering in Sweden.
No, I thought you were suffering, yeah.
So, but we did have a quorum at the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. And the Citizens Advisory Committee did recommend the adoption of the TIP amendments as well as the downtown microsimulation study scope of work. So that was a well-attended meeting. We had 6 members, 6 of the 9 members were in attendance.
Good. Anyone have any questions, comments? Next is finance. Mayor Lewis was not able to join us this evening.
And included in your agenda packet is the, Mayor Lewis's finance report, which reports a beginning balance of $97,821.66 with one deposit, 60 cents, excuse me, with one deposit of $20,475.33, 19 disbursements totaling $20,898.39, leaving an ending balance of $97,398.54.
Move to accept the treasurer's report.
Second.
Second.
Okay, discussion, comments, follow-up? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Motion carries. Executive Director report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since we just met last month, I don't have an exhaustive report, but we have been busy. Chairman Kelly and I met with the Dominion Post Editorial Board and had a good discussion about the MPO and projects that are going along in our area. I did attend the Smithtown Road Design Study Scoping meeting where the DOH is developing the scope of work for their consultants, and that project's moving forward.
Good.
And I attended the State Safety Plan Steering Committee meeting, implementation meeting, yesterday in Charleston. It was a full-day meeting, and it'll be an interesting process. There are a lot of safety measures that will be brought forward with that process. But that was an all-day meeting, and we also were able to talk to them about things like keeping Brookhaven Road moving forward and those things. And we do have good report on Brookhaven Road. The only other thing really on my report is I will probably only be in the office on Wednesday next week. We've got the 2 state holidays, and then I'll be taking a vacation day at least a partial vacation day on Thursday, and then Friday is vacation. And that's my report.
Very good. Any questions, comments?
No.
Hearing none. Next, we have update on Harmony Grove Interchange. And I believe Mr. Glenn Adrian was going to fill us in on that.
Thank you all. Thanks for having me here this evening, and it's good to be back. It's been a while since I think I've appeared before the board. The Harmony Grove interchange process, I'm happy to say, continues to move forward. Without boring you with too much of the detail, we were moving through the process. As you know, the two distinct requirements require an IJR, which is Interstate Justification Report, and a very intensive MMMPO, which is all your environmental reports. And most of those were done. They were submitted to the DOH. Questions were changes, modifications were made. Then it was submitted to the Federal Highway Administration. And at that particular point in time, it took quite a while for us to get back the information from the Federal Highway Administration. When we did, it seemed that we had crossed the threshold. The period of time that we were studying was for all the crash data and the traffic analysis was from the year 2020 to 2040. And since we started this process in probably 2019, 2018, when we selected the 2020, but was selected to go that 20-year period. Well, it has taken so long to get to the point that the Federal Highway Administration came back and then determined that we needed to add 10 years to that traffic study crash data. So now we had to take the 2040 data and extend it to 2050. So that basically meant all the information had to come back. HDR, the consultants that we're using on the project, basically had to then go. Unfortunately, with the cooperation of Bill and his analyst in HDR, we were able to get the federal government to at least approve the fact that the growth rates that they would accept, which could speed up the process. It's 2.5% compound growth rate. They allowed us to use that formula, so that did delay us for about a month. We are now in the process right now of the data has been revised. It's been discussed with the West Virginia Department of Highways. They're okay with the data, so all that data now has to be imputed into the IJR. And the engineers are finishing that up this week and hope to have it to the DOH next week. There shouldn't be any surprises for them to review that. Once that review is done, then that would be submitted to the Federal Highway Administration, who has 30 days to basically review, question, and or approve the document as submitted. And that's important because at that point in time, that would determine if they do approve it and they do have a determination of what of the designs there would be most appropriate, then that would allow us to finish up all the NEPA studies that would go along with that. And it is the NEPA studies that the DOH would then have public hearings scheduled, which was probably the 90-day process to go through the public hearings because it's a 30-day notice, 30-day comment period, and review. But we're on a good path. We have conference calls with the DOH every other week. I know Russ and Bill are on those calls. There's not always a lot of progress because it takes a long time. You're talking about over 200 pages within the Interstate Justification Report, a lot of statistics and data. But we do have a meeting every 2 weeks. Things are discussed. The agenda is basically set for the next 2 weeks, but really we hope within the next 60 days we'll have a lot of progress and hopefully some determination on the Interstate Justification Report and then the NEPA study. And the hearings would then be scheduled. And from there, it's up to the DOH now to basically take it, determine whether we have a viable project or not. So it's been a long road, but we are seeing a small light at the end of the tunnel. And it's becoming more and more critical because, as all of you probably know, Mountaintop Beverage is under production. And it's only a small portion of their production. And by the end of the summer, they'll be in, not full production, but at least 50 to 60% of production. And that really, I mean, right now, they're shipping out 11 trucks a day, but they're bringing in just as many trucks because the raw milk comes in and the finished product goes out. So as their production continues to grow, which it will, and even discussions of expansion of that plant to start this summer sometime, that this interchange will become more and more crucial. And I don't have to tell Mayor Lucci about that because those trucks provide that office on DuPont Road every day. And that's in addition to Central Supply, the transfer station, the SI group, everybody else that goes into the park on a daily basis. It is a very, sand, it's a very busy place. It's a very busy place. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but it's taken a long time, but we are on a pretty good path right now.
Mr. Statler?
Glenn, if I'm correct, I did read a message the other day that the DOH is working with you on the project for signage so that those trucks knows to go across and onto your access road and not continue to go up the hill past the schools, correct?
They told us on a call Monday that within 30 days they will have new signage at the intersection to direct the mountain top, or all trucks basically, but especially mountaintop, to go basically to try to override the GPS system, which seems to be the one taking them up the river road and then into Master Graphic. To bring them into the park. We're also going to be improving, updating the signs within the park. So yeah, they have committed to fixing that.
And that's going to be the electrical signage it's
No, I think it's going to be stationed. I think it's going to be fixed signage.
just fixed.
Yeah. They're not. I found out they're not big fans on the electronic sign.
Yeah, I found that out when I called also.
Told me. Wow.
If I can add, I want to thank you and Jeff Sokol. We received only a couple phone calls that the trucks were using GPS and Wayfinder, even though you had signs saying to go through. This will really help, but that, I know Jeff sent a message out and it immediately stopped. So we really appreciate you working on that because I know all the people who drive the Upper River Road were worried because if 11 trucks were doing that, they were very worried what was going to happen if it was 50 or 60. But we want to please pass on to Jeff and, you know, that what a great partner you were to help us out on that.
Glad to help.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Adrian, thank you very much for the update.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the update on the exit 155 modification.
Yes, and we have Ms. Megan O'Reilly to do the discussion on exit 155.
So I'll provide a quick update. I know everyone is familiar with the project, with the DOH exit 155 includes the future diverting Diamond interchange, the flyover. What we're looking at now, we've been meeting, sorry, I should start with an introduction. I'm Megan O'Reilly, I'm the Director of External Relations for Westridge. Westridge, the county, and the DOH have been working together on progressing this project. And luckily, it's rather hot off the presses, but recently worked with the DOH to expedite construction of the project. So to accomplish that, we've divided the larger project into two contracts. One that will be the bridges, that's I-79, and then the second contract will be the remainder of the work that's same that's in your TIF, that same project. So we are looking at design this summer and moving to construction late spring, summer of 24. And that is for the bridge spans at I-79. That will accommodate all future growth that we have envisioned with the county. So the larger span for multimodal access, looking at the mayor, and anything we need for that Adjournment interchange. So you'll see a higher clearance on your bridge span, and that we're getting underway quickly.
It is hot off the press.
Yes.
It is.
Any questions?
I have one, Mike.
Oh,
So,
go ahead.
they're gonna reconfigure that 155 then, right? as far as the traffic coming off, and will there be stoplights or?
Sure, great question. So the initial contract one is only the spans of the bridge. So that'll be the two spans replacing likely the northbound first, and then the second to route traffic there. The exit ramps are included in phase 2. There's not signaling, I don't believe currently in the plan, but looking at traffic flow of those, accommodating the changes to the DBI is all in that second phase.
It'd be nice to have a traffic signal where the buses get off and try to get across, go up to the garage, but we're patient, we'll wait.
And
Do we have some timeline or some times for this phase 1, phase 2?
Phase 1, we're looking at design, should get underway in the next few weeks. We're finalizing the collaboration agreement with the DOH. And so that process into bidding, letting, and we're looking at spring, summer of next year, 2024, for the first construction project. I think phase 2, we're determining after we get that first one off the ground. I don't know the timing exactly when that schedule will be outlined.
What about design?
For the
For
second
phase 2, yeah.
I think getting through phase 1, not the entirety, but I think we're getting over the hurdle of that schedule and going from there.
Very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Stadler?
Mike brought up a good point or a sore spot, I don't know which one it is for me, is the traffic gets backed up in that area. A simple solution, because people don't know when to go, because they don't know when cars are going to change lanes right in that area. And I've asked the DOH several times why they can't put those sticks up through there or paint a solid line so that the people pulling out the buses and other cars when events is going on. Is there any way in this design for temporary that you can put a little pressure on them and do a little something there? Because it doesn't do any good for me to try to put pressure on them.
I don't know that I can put pressure, but I will certainly relay the message.
If they'll just bring the sticks, I'll put them up. If it's that much of a work for them, I can handle that.
I'll pass it on, certainly.
Well, and to Joe's point,
study that we did to them
when
and asked
there's
them
big events,
to
that
look into it in
the
response to
sheriff,
that.
the sheriff is
They don't wanna
contracted
put
to
in the
do
signal
that.
because they want
That's
to modify the
exactly
interchange
what they
system.
do with cones,
Okay.
to keep that flow so you don't get back up on the interstate.
Mhm.
And instead of having 2 lanes there, it brings it to 1, but you have a steady flow that can get out and then merge. But anything we can do to talk to DOH, that could be an easy,
Some good
short-term
contacts. Yes.
interim solution, so.
Okay.
And the biggest thing that they ever told me, it is a maintenance nightmare in the winter when it's snow, and I could see that. But surely we can overcome that and put the sticks back up. I mean, this is just being made way too complicated and backing traffic up onto the interstate and causing a lot of dangerous situations.
Oh, yeah.
This does not need to exist.
If everyone agrees verbally, could we just kind of ask Bill to make some contacts to the concerns that we're having? And I think that way, at least it shows that we are trying to do something. So it doesn't need a vote, but if we could just
Affirmation.
verbal affirmation that, and that way he could at least try that. And no, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Maybe in support of.
Yeah, support of that.
Right.
Okay.
And just to relate to everybody, we've actually asked them to do turning movement counts at those interchange, which shows that the interchange is failing. And the response we've gotten back informally has been that since the interchange is going to be modified in a relatively short time frame, they don't want to put something in. But I think it's justified to get something done with it.
We could try temporarily.
Yeah, a temporary kind of solution.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I
Well,
agree
the
with
traffic's
Kevin.
just gonna get worse and worse in 5 years out to Milan Park.
Yeah.
That's because Blinko keeps winning state championships.
Yeah.
Y'all want to come and see him?
Yeah, you
All
can't
those
keep winning
runners.
those
Yeah.
championships.
You opened that
Those
one
runners
up.
up
Yeah.
there.
Open that one up.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Okay, TIP amendments and adjustments,
Certainly,
Transportation Improvement Program.
Yes.
To the viewers.
yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will note that there was a slight hiccup in the agenda packets. We should have included in the agenda packet an amendment of the Mountain Line Transit Authority's Transportation Improvement Program. It has been duly advertised in the newspaper and on the MPO's website. It was simply an oversight of including it in the policy board's agenda packet. There's an extra page in your agenda packet that shows the proposed TIP amendments, and it's actually from the newspaper advertisement that we submitted. This is Mountain Line's annual budget review after they've worked with Federal Transit Administration on that. And if Mr. Bruffy would like to say anything about that, that would be welcome there.
This includes 4 different funding sources. One is our standard formula 5307 funding. That's the $3.4 million you see. The 5311F is a special funding for our Gray Line service that we travel to the airport in Greyhound. And then on the other side, you see the funding that we have. We actually get it's a small transit-intensive cities. We get a bump up in funding because of the number of rides we give in comparison to a community of 200,000 to 1 million. So we outperform those metrics, and so we get a little extra money for that purpose as well. So this is pretty standard.
So we apologize for not having it included in the agenda packet, but it has been duly advertised, and we would like you to consider this as one of our TIP amendments. The actual TIP amendments that you have included in the multi-page memorandum that I included are for the Smithtown Road traffic signal, and that is the purchase of the right-of-way for a modification of the Smithtown Road intersection with Don Knotts Boulevard, and also the construction funding for that. As the policy board is aware, the MPO is providing the design funding for that from the MPO's carbon reduction program allocation. That is the actual TIP amendment. What you see on the next page is TIP administrative adjustments up at the top, and those are major projects where there's been a minor slippage in the schedule, and some of it's overdue. For example, one of the West Run was changed from 9/28/22 to 2/28/24, so that was overdue. But the others are a matter of, for those projects, of a couple of months, couple of 3 months changes. So those are pretty insignificant. The next item that you see are TIP administrative adjustments for groupable projects. And I think the policy board had concerns when we adopted the groupable projects, and we were the last MPO in the state to adopt them. What we did when we approved our full TIP was approve a budget within these programs for the district, and then the district of DOH would tell us what projects they are funding with them. That is the list that you see in front of you on those pages. These are the projects that will be done. We have made one comment, and we will reiterate the comment to DOH until we don't have to reiterate it anymore, that we need better locational information. I'm not familiar with the location of some of these projects, and really to be transparent to the public, they need to give us better locational information. But they are telling us about the projects, and that's all very good, and we're happy to have it. And I'm sure probably Delegate Statler knows where most of these places are, but I don't. There's some project modifications that start at the bottom of the next to last page. And those are, once again, mostly just very minor changes. And you will see that the West Run project, we saw that it was moved to 2024 for the design and right-of-way. That is moved from August of 2025 to December of 2025. So it's once again a relatively insignificant change of 3 months. But the policy board does not need to act on those items. They are informational only, and we want to make sure that the public is aware of them and that the policy board is aware of them. That is really all we need to do. Is I would appreciate 2 separate motions, one to approve Mountain Line's TIP amendments, and then one to approve the highway TIP amendment for the Smithtown Road traffic signal.
I move to approve the tip for the bus program.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, what's the second one now?
The second one is the
Adjustment.
Smithtown Line
Smithtown.
intersection.
Okay. I'll entertain a
I
motion.
move to pass the
Smithtown?
Smithtown Road
Second.
intersection.
Thank
All
God.
right. And Tom is second.
21 years.
Any more discussion, follow up? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Opposed, the same. Tom's happy.
21 years on it. Well, they call it something else.
All right, next, downtown microsimulation study scope of work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very important project, I think, to the whole area. We have an appointed steering committee, which we have invited DOH Traffic Engineering to also participate in, and they are very happy to do that. It will be taking a look at a variety of scenarios for changes to the downtown traffic network. We've had it reviewed by the steering committee, which includes quite a few members of this board. It's been reviewed also by the Morgantown Pedestrian Board, as well as the TTAC and the CAC. And we've made some changes to the scope of work reflecting some of those concerns. And we feel like it has been very well vetted. The next step is if the board accepts this scope of work, we will enter into a contract with the DOH for them to go into a contract with Kimley Horn to do the work. And we should be billing our participants at the beginning of July 1st for the remainder of the funding for the study. Once we receive that funding, DOH will get the check and we'll be able to give Kimley Horn the go-ahead to start the data collection and get the project underway. I would appreciate a motion to accept this scope of work for the project.
So moved.
Second.
Ron? And then Joe. Okay, is there any other discussion, questions? Yeah, it looks like you have a question.
No, I'm just a little confused about all the different studies. Sound like the same studies being done, or is there?
This is we use a regional travel demand model for our studies.
Mm-hmm.
This will take our regional travel demand model, the traffic counts that we have, and plug them into the arterial network in downtown and actually simulate how the traffic operates. So the software, if you've never seen it, and I'm sorry, Ms. O'Reilly has left, she can give you a description of how it works. It will actually show the traffic signals operating and how the traffic flows through on the computer screen, so you can see how it works. It will give you the delay statistics for potential changes to the downtown street network. For example, one of the things we've talked about is what happens if you eliminate the one-way street pairs in downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And so it will take that data and we will change the network, and then it will show how the traffic will flow if you were to eliminate Spruce Street and Pleasant Street and Chestnut Street and so forth as being one-way streets and turn them into two-way streets. That's just one example of something that can be done. It will also
Or reversing.
or
One way going
reversing
this
the
way.
one-way pairs.
Yeah.
You could do that sort of analysis. It would look at a whole wide variety of alternative scenarios for downtown in a very small time frame rather than the big, we give you traffic volumes and peak period traffic volumes with our regional travel demand model. This is working on a minute-to-minute scale. So it's a much more focused, it's like getting the microscope on the ants kind of stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat to watch them when you just
Yeah.
plug in.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And again, time frame on this, it seems as though we have the data, you have the software. What are we looking at in terms of application recommendations?
There will be a considerable additional data collection undertaken, doing turning movement counts, which is a big thing. You have to, figure out the signal timing. Signal optimization is also another alternative we're looking at. Can we make the signals better? But that data collection should take place in the October timeframe, preferably not at football weekend, but when school is fully involved. And we've talked to the consultants, and we would have the steering committee come back and look at those kinds of results. There'll be interim meetings in probably the March to May timeframe.
Okay.
So, by this time next year, the vast majority of the work for the study should be done, and then we can all argue about the alternatives that we want to work with.
It'll open up a whole Pandora's box.
Yeah, but it will be the most informed discussion of all those issues that we will have had as far as what it does to traffic operations. And we are working with consultants to make sure that alternative modes of transportation are considered appropriately, though it is primarily a vehicular study. So, and that includes discussions of things like advanced signal, pedestrian signals, and so forth that the city's been working with. So it's a very comprehensive study, and as I said, it's like taking the microscope to the ants and really looking at it in gritty detail.
Just to confirm what I'm hearing, we're taking into consideration pedestrian bicycles as well as automobile.
As appropriate. We can't model the pedestrian behavior like we can model vehicular but we can take into account the signal timing for pedestrians if somebody hits the button. Those sorts of accommodations can be built into the model and will be built into the model. So, and making sure
just
that...
to emphasize, we are looking at the idea of a more walkable community, in particular downtown.
Right.
So
And
let me make that quite clear in terms of that's being a desirable outcome.
Yes, and we've been very clear with the consultants, and they do multimodal work. They're familiar with how to address those issues.
Thank you.
Rob?
So and I want to be very clear, I want to preface this because we were walking some general areas around the downtown and campus yesterday, and I'm not advocating for taking parking off the street.
Yeah.
But my point there is, to our surprise, and it was a little easier to see in the summer when you don't have, there's some open parking spaces.
Right.
But there's a lot of the streets in and around the campus area, around Prospect, Spruce, even North High, that the right-of-ways there to do exactly what Bill's saying and even potentially have two-way traffic. So will you be able to model that, saying, hey, it's parking right now, but can we get some idea of what if you, and I'm making this up again, so don't go and report we're going to turn Prospect into two ways, but what if 2 blocks of Prospect was 2 ways and no parking was on it? What would they can do that kind of stuff?
They can go down to that level.
Okay.
It's not miracle work, but they can give you a very good estimate of what would happen.
Okay.
I appreciate it that when we're looking at this model that we're looking very much right there, because I think it doesn't exactly work, and it would be great to see if there are options that would help. I guess in line with some of Bill's comments, I've always wondered if if instead of the signals for pedestrians being push button, if they just went in line with the cars, if it would help both the cars and the pedestrians
An automatic pedestrian phase.
that when you got up to the intersection,
It's something we
and
can
the cars were going, that at the appropriate time that you'd automatically get the go-ahead to go through, and that then it would shut down and you wouldn't have the option to push. And it just,
I always thought it was,
other places I've been, you could just walk down a whole area, because if you hit it with the lights, you just went right through and.
It'd be nice to have the technology, which I'm sure it's out there, is once they're standing there and they push the button, and it's waiting to cycle in the cars, and then they cross anyway, then it's waiting for the cycle. It's always thought it'd be nice to have a pad there. When they step off the pad, it cancels the walk.
Oh.
That's a clever idea.
That's true.
That's actually a great
Because
idea.
they'll, and you see it all downtown.
Right.
I've seen it time and time again. They'll push
They're
it.
already done.
Right, they're already
And all
done.
the cars
They're
wait through the
That's
cycle.
actually a
Right,
good
they're already,
idea.
they're halfway where they're
Everybody
headed.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
You
that's
stop for no
why-
reason.
If the
Pedestrians already
pedestrian
gone.
phase was built in, then you wouldn't be pushing the buttons. And you
Well,
wouldn't
some of
have
those,
that
though,
issue.
part of
You wouldn't have to.
that, part of the problem is you have a right turn on red.
Mm.
So the pedestrian would, okay, this traffic's going this way, and they start to cross, but then your right turn on red is kind of a continuous flow, whereas, if they push the walk button, and as soon as they step off, if they've already gone, and then it just cancels, and then the car, vehicular traffic
Well,
keeps going.
here we have our challenge.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
We put
Okay. Anybody else?
some reason we're doing any of the construction school on Beatrice.
All right.
Yeah.
We have a
Yeah.
motion and a second. We've had the discussion.
So moved.
Oh, we already
Yeah,
have.
we're good.
We already have it.
We already
We're
have
just
the
ready to
motion.
vote.
Ready to
You
vote.
probably
You
didn't
were
hear
the
it from
second.
there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion passes, and we got a whole bunch of stuff to go with that one.
Yeah. That's good.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, appointment of auditor selection committee.
We need to have an auditor selection committee of at least 3 people. As the executive director, I volunteered myself, and Mayor Lewis has also volunteered to serve on our auditor selection committee. And we were hopeful that we could at least get one other policy board member to agree to serve on the committee. It basically, we've only gotten 2 applicants. It's basically reading the proposals, scoring them in a format that is designated by the state, and then selecting, making a recommendation to the policy board for the audit. So we actually gave them a little too long to reply. We may still get some more responses, but generally
Only 2.
generally the proposals are a couple pages.
Who's not here? That we
Yeah,
can-
Tom brought up, who's not here?
I move Commissioner Sikora. It's right up his line of work.
Yeah, he's so busy.
He actually served last time.
Yeah, and I do it for the county
So he
and
knows
our
what he's
audit
doing.
selection, so that's no problem.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice
Thanks,
move,
Joe.
Joe.
Okay.
Give him what you know he's good at.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem.
I've done it before.
Okay.
All right, old business, suballocation project selection policy. Maybe get a little background on how we got
Yeah.
to this point.
This has been a fairly involved process. We submitted to the policy board, I believe it was at the January meeting, an outline of this proposed process for selecting projects for our suballocated funds. We submitted a draft version of this at the May meeting. We received some comment and a request for a little bit of additional review. Staff held a couple of meetings that the policy board members could attend if you had any comments or question about it. We also gave a call to the 2 policy board members who had expressed concerns about the process and gotten their recommendations on potential changes to the policy. And the policy in front of you, which I've outlined initially as well included in this document, is being presented to
With
you
the
all.
changes, correct?
With the changes they proposed, I'm sorry, for your consideration.
I would move for approval of the policy.
And I would second it.
All right.
And I would say to the board that I appreciate Mr. Alston and the staff taking the concerns that I had and being able to work with it. And they came out with a work product that very much satisfied what I was concerned with. So I'm good to go.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Policy passes.
Thank you all very much. I'm very happy with that. And as I think I noted in my memorandum, we will try and have proposed projects towards the budget at the October meeting, and that'll make sure that any entity that wants to apply for this process will have a good time frame for selection. And that'll be at the turn of the federal fiscal year, so it'll be appropriate time. Good.
All right. Any other business?
I wanted to ask, well, a comment. I know we discussed the study, but I think the important comment is, given the ability to look at the Grumbines Island situation, redevelopment of Richwood that is a high priority in this community, and the third thing is Willie Street being a Tier 1 project.
Right.
I think this study and direction is going to be maybe one of the most important processes that has taken place in the history of Morgantown, because we've got so much redevelopment
first time.
opportunity within that. But with that said, I know we had funding partners, and maybe if you sent this to us as a standalone document,
Yeah.
I apologize for not reading it, but could you resend it so we can share with folks? I actually had a question today from WVU. Where are we with the study, and when we get, and I can just send that and say, here's where it's at.
I'll be happy to resend it, or it's.
We need a check.
It is in your.
I know it was in the full packet, but.
It's in the full packet, yeah, let's
Okay.
resend.
Okay.
Okay,
We will do it.
thank you.
Anyone else have anything for the good of the order?
I had something. So I've been on this committee for a while now, and I know there's some things we can't do, and there's some things we can do. I wrote a letter to the commission the other day. I see up here on the MMMPO logo, we have cars, buses, pedestrians, bikes. Mr. Kowecki brought up a walkable community and pedestrian safety. We have got to start getting people and holding people accountable for cutting their grass and cutting weeds in our community. Sidewalks are terrible, roads are terrible, sides of roads are terrible. It's in Granville, it's in Star City, it's in Morgantown, it's DOH, it's everywhere. Bill, what can we do? Every year it's a problem. Does code enforcement need to start doing something in all municipalities? This is a concern. If somebody's walking, they could get hit if we don't see them.
Yeah.
If someone's riding a bike, if someone's trying to walk a sidewalk, we're talking about all this pedestrian safety. The one thing we can control is cutting grass.
There's not a lot we can do about it unless it's actually observable that a tree or bushes are blocking sight. And then we can complain to DOH about that, and then it's their responsibility because it's a safety issue for that. That is about the only thing really that we can do about that now. We can work up, we could work with like a Clean Communities campaign and something of that sort of nature. And we'd be happy to put some staff time into that sort of thing, but it really would just be a public outreach, but it would have to be focused on safety.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I think safety is the biggest thing, and I was talking about it the other day. I said, even when I'm driving down the road, there could be a deer right there and jump right out in front of your car. You can't react because the weeds are so high. And it's everywhere. It's not just one place. It's everywhere. And I didn't know if this was something that you started the committee on panhandling. It brought all the municipalities together for a great meeting. It was wonderful to have everybody in the same room talking. Is this another common county issue that we could all work together on to try to address? Because not only pedestrian safety, it's about the appearance of the community.
Right.
We're bringing people in here, people coming to visit. They want to see a clean place, a vibrant place, a well-maintained place. And it's like this every year. And I think we finally maybe need to try to, and if safety is the way to go, let's
Yeah,
do it.
and that's the only way the MPO could,
Okay.
with our funding source, could address it, would be safe.
And we don't have any authority. We can't cite anybody.
Mhm.
On that though, Steve, and again, I only live in the city of Morgantown, so I only know where I live.
Yep.
But there's a really good program in the city that if you're at an intersection or a right of way and it's private property, and I know this from experience, not only did they say, hey, we need to cut it, but we'll cut it for you. I had a tree that was hanging over, and I was willing to do it, but they came in They said, if you're okay with it, we're clearing right where the sight lines. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, go ahead and do it, saves me from doing it.
Well, I know
But it
one
was a
of
good
the,
program, maybe you could visit with what the city street department does, because I've noticed it multiple times in and around where I live, that they even go and cut the grass around the stop signs and so far back. But it's through the street department, they do a nice job.
when I know talking to our public works people in Star City, even down at University, we are not allowed to cut the weeds that grow between the road and the sidewalk. They get huge.
Why?
They're told they're not allowed to touch those.
Yeah, we're told that too, and we do.
And we do it too, but
It
we're
must be a
not,
Westover thing. 'Cause I
No,
remember-
we're
We're
not-
never allowed to do anything anyway, so we do it.
but we're not supposed to.
Yeah.
So if
You're
they don't want
not,
us to,
but
why
it-
don't they just give us a blessing and say,
Well,
Well, part of that, the state road itself, when they do the clearing,
I mean, really.
they're only allowed to cut trees between, I think, October
Yeah.
and March or something like that.
Anything over 3 inches.
yeah.
Yeah, so they,
Well, Mayor, I appreciate your city and the stance that you guys have traditionally taken on, and
Well,
it's
we
just
do,
do it and beg
because
for
they're not
forgiveness
going
if
to.
somebody.
They're not going to, and it looks terrible. And they don't, they just think it's the city of Westover. They don't care if it's a state road or
Yeah.
what it is. They just think, well, the city of Westover's not taking care of their stuff.
Well, even when you're coming off 155, every spring we
Ugh.
have to beg them,
Yeah.
when the weeds get this high.
It's like a
we beg-
hayfield.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
yep,
Well, I sent a picture, and I spoke with Mike Daly this late afternoon. I didn't get to talk with you. And one of the questions I brought up was how bad the pictures were showing University Avenue, Don Knotts Boulevard, getting off the interchanges of how high it was. And I kept telling him, look how high it is, and it hasn't rained for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Imagine if it had been. And their comment was that they're trying to get back onto it because of the pothole blitz. And everyone was doing the pothole blitz and wasn't able to do that. So I stressed that, we all needed them to come back up
Expectations.
and, and do this, because it is, coming into, we get it from saying it's a county road. Well, yeah, it may say county road number so-and-so. but-
Designation.
Designation, but it is something that, and I will, maybe, we're supposed to meet every 6 months, that committee. I think that's a great idea to put on there, what we can do uniformly, and I think that's the whole concept. If everyone's doing it uniformly, then we can get something done.
Well, and if we all, each in our jurisdictions, agree to something,
mhm.
it doesn't even have to be, well, it could be an initiative.
Yes.
That we all agree on, but everyone can do it even a little bit differently in this
Yeah.
case, and just
And it'd make
get
a
it
huge
done, as
difference.
you're talking
Yeah.
about.
yeah.
One,
Bill?
one council person I know said, I got so fed up, I got on my weed whipper. So,
Weed whipper.
just
We
saying.
whipper.
We've talked
It's a
about
new
this
name.
West
before,
Virginia thing.
and perhaps the approach to take is that we work with the DOH, saying that we are willing to take this on. Can we work out some sort of contractual arrangement? Whether it's a matter of fact of compensation or doing it on our own, or what you're willing to invest. But again, you just bitching at them is not gonna get us anyplace. If we
Right.
come with a positive
Yeah.
solution, I think we'll make more
I agree, they'll work
progress.
with it, because if you,
If the board will, I will reach out to the district.
And I think this is the appropriate organization to
I
talk
think
to
Mike
them
Daly
about
is
that.
interested in that.
Okay.
And Emily had thrown that out at that meeting, and for the first time, they didn't say no. They said, well, we'll look into it. So that was a big step.
So if we give them a little bit of, time to formulate if they have a plan,
Yeah, or we can help
and then we're
resolve
gonna
that
have a
plan.
meeting.
right,
Yeah,
Or
thanks,
have
that
the
would be
meeting,
great.
then
They
give them
do-
a little bit of time to formulate a plan.
they
Yeah.
do that on snow removal. And
Right,
if you
we
go
do
to
it-
them and say, like if I said, I wanna take care of the highway in front of my business, you get with them, work out the details, because they don't want, obviously you don't want somebody out there.
Well, we had that emergency when we had those bad snows. Remember, from the interstates to the hospitals and back, they let us actually clear the roads. In fact, they were thrilled.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
They don't want anybody just going out
No.
and doing it, they wanna
But-
have an agreement
Right,
saying,
an
this is
agreement.
how we want
And
you
that's
to
what we
do
did.
it.
Yeah, and for example, Nettle has an agreement on snow removal
okay.
on Collins Ferry.
Yeah,
Right, right.
okay. I think that's a great idea, Steve.
One thing, and this is exactly what I've always said about the MPO, because growing up in this area, we never had these voices before. Nobody was talking, WVU didn't know what Morgantown was doing, Westover didn't know what Granville. And when this all started, I was just thrilled to see all the voices getting together and sitting down and hashing out. What we just discussed here in 5 minutes would have taken 2 weeks by phone call, everybody calling and trying to figure out what to do and all that. And it all got taken care of as far as the agreement as to what we can do and what we should do. So I think that's what I like about this. I think this was a good committee for the federal government to put together and working with all of the municipalities, and so it's a good job.
But you know what, Mike, since Ben Conley covers all of you all, I think we just get together next month and talk about Ben Conley for a little
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm about to adjourn, but first I want to thank all of you for volunteering your time, and because this takes time, and that's what communities have to have, is people taking time. So thanks to all of you for giving us your time, because there's no more of that you can go to the bank and get up.
Pardon me coming late, but I took the mile ground. I could have turned down earlier to get on to 7, and I took the mile ground and it ate up the rest of my time sitting there. So I'm looking forward to when the mile ground opens, and if I accidentally go that way, I would have 4 lanes instead of 2.
It's guaranteed maybe by August 1st.
Yeah, guaranteed. Okay, we're adjourned.
Guaranteed.
Taxes in the bottom.
Until we're out.